Oh, good afternoon to the afternoon session of the BOCC. Well, we just finished up the other.
How was lunch?
Yeah. First on the agenda, and I'm actually looking forward to hearing about this. I was over at Kelso Council meeting, and I think you presented a little bit, and it whetted my appetite enough to know more. And I know Commissioner Weber then I think heard from you, so we're pleased to have you over and listen. Wherever you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll sit right here.
Okay.
It'll be easier on you there because then you face all three of us. That's what, just a recommendation.
Ellie, does he need to tell you in advance? Yeah, okay.
There should be, you hit a button in the middle and it'll give you a green light on the microphone. Nope,
On the microphone pad.
there you go.
Push. Very good.
And you
Okay.
kind of have to be,
I'll bring it
There
in.
you
Oh,
go.
wow.
Yeah, perfect,
Perfect.
perfect.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And maybe Kelly should be able to start that. Yeah, very good. So again, presenting, a project we're calling Catlin in Maine. It's right down here in West Kelso on city-owned land, sort of across from the Red Leaf Coffee Company. So we're calling it Kelso in Maine. And
In this case, maybe you could identify yourself.
sorry, thank you, Commissioner. So my name is Adam Lee. I work with Community Frameworks. We're a nonprofit development consultant. We're primarily based in Spokane, but we do work for in communities all over the state. So we do work everywhere in the state except for the Puget Sound area. So Tri-Cities, we're doing a lot of work down here in Southwest Washington. We've done work in Tri-Cities, a lot of work in Walla Walla and North Central Washington. So, but based in Spokane again. So we have a number of projects for our own portfolio in Spokane, and then we do work for clients elsewhere in the state. So that's what we do. And we were approached about this project in 2019 originally by the city of Kelso, when Steve Tyler, when he was the city manager at the city of Kelso. Steve Taylor. Yeah, thank you.
If I could be impolite at this point,
Sure.
I'm hearing impaired enough. Please enunciate more.
Will do. Yeah.
Yes.
and
It's like
thank
you're
you.
going to talk to 1,000 people.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry that I'm sorry about that. I'll try and do a better job, but let me know if that happens again. So I'll slow down a little bit. But like I said, so we were originally approached about this project in 2019. The city had this piece of land and also had a couple of goals for what they might want to do on this piece of land. Number one was, to build a really nice project, to build a project that looked really nice and would sort of act as an anchor to this community. We've also since then developed a couple of other goals for this project, including to build affordable housing, to build housing that's responsive to the sort of affordable housing issue in Cowlitz County. We've also looked at finding a new home for the Kelso Library. The Kelso Library is in the Three Rivers Mall right now, so they wanted to find a new home for that. To find a new home for the Kelso Senior Center. The Senior Center has a significant amount of deferred maintenance, I think, and so there was a desire to find a new sort of permanent home for the Senior Center, and then again to really anchor this part of the neighborhood. The history of the project to date, again, we were approached in 2019. The city of Kelso identified the site and intends to donate the site to the project, and then they helped identify preliminary project goals. Following that, Lower Columbia CAP was selected as the sponsor, so they would ultimately own and manage the residential portion of the building, and then the city of Kelso would continue to own and manage the we call it the commercial, but the library and the senior center portion of the building. And then HOSWA, the housing authority in Longview, was selected as the property manager, so they would work with Lower Columbia CAP to manage the property and to manage intake of residents and to support that work. So here's a picture of the site. You can see, so the main site currently owned by the city is this one outlined in red right here. We, in community frameworks is looking at the site. We've identified it as a really, it's a great site. It's flat, which is, not typical for many of our sites. The zoning is great. It's empty, and it's quite close to a number of different amenities. There's grocery stores close by. There's transit right close by. And I guess, sorry, just to give a little bit more context. So across the street, sort of straight north is the Red Leaf Coffee. You can see, and then this is where the Sons of Norway building is right now, is on the corner, sort of straight south. So the city owns this part outlined in red, and then intends to purchase and donate the portion outlined in blue. So that's a couple of different lots down there that are outlined in blue, but they would add to the overall site. That's next slide, please. So this is a sort of a very conceptual site plan of what the preferred development option looks like right now. You can see there's two buildings here. There's one large building on the triangular portion of the site, and then there's a smaller building that would be where that blue outline site is. So there's two buildings. It's a total of 40 units. The library would be located in the main building, and then we would locate the senior center in building number 2. This plan right now provides for 49 parking spaces. There's potentially space for more on Catlin Street. The city's indicated a willingness to vacate Catlin Street. That's sort of still in conversation about whether we would do that. But sort of conceptually right now, this is the plan that we're moving forward. This 2-building, 40 unit with 49 parking spaces idea. Next slide. This is conceptually what the main building would look like. So this is the libraries here in purple. There's a little bit of office space for Lower Columbia Cap in yellow, and then that orange is a lobby. This library it's between 7,000 and 8,000 square feet. So the current Kelso library is about 12,000 square feet. So they would have to economize a little bit. 8,000 square feet is roughly the main floor of the library in Longview, just for context. So this is still a pretty nice size. And in talking with the manager at the library, I think there's a sense that this is really a pretty good size for the amount of space that they need. Next slide. And then that would be the ground floor. Then 2 upper floors would be residential units. This is 8 studio units, and then 6 1-bedroom units. So 14 units per floor for 2 floors. So 28 total units in this main building. And again, 8 studios and 6 1-bedrooms on each floor. This is the second building. So this is this community center or senior center outlined in red here. 3,200 square feet is pretty big. It's a pretty big room. Also includes a kitchen, which the senior center indicated that they would need, and it sounds like gets used very well at the current facility. So there's a kitchen there. There's quite a lot of storage space, and a really nice room here. Next slide. And then upper floors in this building number 2, 2 studios and 4 1-bedroom units, 6 units per floor, a total of 12 units in this second building. Unit layouts, just for interest here. These are all ADA accessible, so they're quite flexible. Each unit would have a full kitchen, bedroom, bath, and really be a very livable unit. These are pretty good sized. The 1-bedrooms are about 600 square feet, which is pretty good sized. The studios obviously are a little bit smaller, but still are typical or a little bit larger than I think what you would typically find in an affordable housing project. The architect The architect is ZBA. They're based out of Spokane. They're a very experienced low-income housing architect. What they're really known for in the industry is they're known for developing buildings or for designing buildings with sort of a very repeatable building, very repeatable sort of unit layout, which provides some fairly significant cost efficiencies is what we found. They're also known for designing buildings that are really durable. You know, they've identified the places where durability is really important, and they specify really durable finishings and really durable fixtures. So really long-lived buildings that are really easy to manage in operations, I think is what their goal is. So they're a great architect, and they've done a lot of work for clients throughout the state. Next slide. Yeah, excuse me. This is the populations that we intend to serve right now. This is what we've committed to so far. This is somewhat still up for discussion, but and will continue to evolve as we continue to apply for more funding sources later on this summer and in the fall. But right now, what we're looking at is that 50% of the people coming in will earn less than 30% of the area median income. 10% of the people will, or 10% of tenants will earn less than 40%, and then 40% of the tenants will earn less than 60% of the area median income. Area median income in Cowlitz County for a family of 4 is between $70,000 and $80,000 is the last I checked. So these will mostly be singles. Area median income is obviously a little bit less for a 1 or 2 person family, but you know, just to give an idea, that's sort of what we're looking at. 50% of tenants will be homeless upon entry, and then 50% will meet a sort of broad definition of special needs. This includes elderly, includes disabled, you know, and any sort of, you know, mental, physical, developmental disability, includes people recovering from physical abuse or fleeing domestic violence. So there's a very broad special needs category that 50% of tenants will meet. And you know, the reason that we did this, and the reason that we selected this population is you know, the Housing Authority waitlist data, and then the data from Lower Columbia CAP on who they serve really showed a major need for single units, you know, sort of single person or 2 person families, and really needing single units. So that's
Adam, I noticed
Yeah.
in the big building on the main floor, there's 4 or 5 offices.
Yep.
Set aside. Is that designed to be the caseworkers who will work with the residents, or is that a different program?
Correct. No, yeah, it's both. There's a property manager, a space for a property manager, and typically in a building like this, you'd have a property manager on site 3 or 4 days a week, and then the rest would be for case management services, which would be provided by CAP. CAP would be the best place to provide those services. This is the sort of most current development budget. We're looking at about $15 million in construction costs, and then another between $1.5 and $2 million in soft costs with some sort of associated costs. Total development costs about $18 million, and again roughly $15 million in construction. This is based on actually the architect has provided what is usually a pretty good estimate. The architect is a pretty good estimator. It's also based on a project that we're doing for HOSWA, for the Longview Housing Authority right now, called Sunrise Village. And so those numbers were also rolled into this one. So we feel pretty good about this construction estimate. But frankly, the market's been really tough, you know, in construction in the last 2 or 3 years, and we feel pretty good about it. But there's, you know, obviously space for it to change. Next slide. And then this is a sources budget that we're looking at right now. We've applied that first source, Federal Home Loan Bank. That application went in last week, went in at the end of May, excuse me. There's $65,000 in home funds from the city of Kelso. That application also went in at the end of May. And then the third application that's in is that state CDBG for $1 million. So those have all gone in. We'll hear about those by December. And then the State Housing Trust Fund, 5 million is going to go in the middle of September. And then the low income housing tax credit equity, 10.2 million is roughly what we expect to get from that. That'll go in at the beginning of November. We should hear about all of these sources by the middle of December. And so that's when we would know. You can see there's a little bit of a funding gap there. We're still working with the city of Kelso to help us identify sources to fill that funding gap, but we have a couple of different, I think, paths forward if we need those paths forward. So next slide. Look, a number of risks, obviously, to the project. You know, all the sources are extremely competitive. I think that we and community frameworks, we wouldn't be moving forward with the project if we didn't think that it was competitive for all of the sources. So, but you know, the sources themselves are just extremely competitive, and you know, and sometimes projects take a couple of years of applications to get there. Number two, that funding gap again, you know, 685,000 is a reasonably sizable gap. So we need to figure out a way to fill that. And then the other third risk is that funding community spaces, frankly, is just really difficult, right? You know, there's a lot of emphasis, especially at the state level, on funding housing, but there's less emphasis at the state level on funding, or I mean, it comes at the cost, I guess I should say, of funding those community, you know, those library spaces and those senior centers and those community centers. And it's just sort of the reality, I think, that we're living in right now. But, you know, I think that this project also has a number of sort of very unique factors and very, very major benefits that you know, that funders really like. Number one, housing atop a senior center and a library, it's unique statewide, you know, and frankly, projects that do this, the projects that put housing on top of libraries get written about in national publications, right? You know, it's a big deal to be able to do that and to be able to say that, you know, we figured out a way to do that. So I think that that's a selling point. The donated land is a significant investment, you know, and funders also really care to show that the local jurisdiction really cares about the project and is invested in seeing its success. And donated land is significant there. And then third, you know, the city has really set up this West Kelso area to accommodate a project like this. You know, there's a potential for a really transformational impact in West Kelso. So all of those are major selling points to the funders and to potential partners. So. Upcoming schedule, just for information. So like I said, 3 applications have been submitted. They were all submitted at the end of May or beginning of June. We're entering into due diligence on the site this summer. So that's looking at, you know, environmental issues with the site. That's any geotechnical issues, you know, and figuring out what needs to happen with the soil and whether it needs to be stabilized. That's getting a survey, you know, sort of very basic due diligence things. Other state applications are coming in the fall, and then funding decisions are in the middle of December. If all goes well, it'll take about 9 months from getting funding to starting construction, and then a 12 to 15 month construction period puts us sort of finalizing construction in the end of 2025 or early 2026 is kind of what we'd be looking at schedule wise. So again, that's the project. We're really excited about it. I think we've got a great team, great architect, and great sponsor, and obviously a lot of support from the city. I'm open to any questions, and thanks for hosting me.
Yeah.
Adam, your cost of expenses included 25,000 for acquisition.
Mhm.
Is that the blue rectangle that the city still has to acquire, or?
No, that would be project costs. Yeah, so that's things
So
like
your project costs don't include the value from the city of Kelso?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
correct.
I didn't think they could get that for 25.
Yeah.
It is this unique blend of multi-purpose functions for lots of different housing needs as well as community needs in an area that traditionally has had a tough time. It's part of the nature of that neighborhood. They've had some tough rows to hoe.
Yeah. Have you done projects that had that kind of mix of housing before? I'm
You
just
know-
wondering how it all works together.
Community framework says, yeah, but more typical is like a childcare facility on the ground floor of a family project is a pretty typical, sort of mix of uses. And I guess, and we're also doing one out in Pacific County, and I believe that on the ground floor of that one, they have some like kind of hot desk offices for nonprofits in a nonprofit in Pacific County could come in and rent a desk for a day or rent a desk for a month or something like that. But no, of this scale, it's pretty unique. It's especially outside of, outside the Puget Sound, it's pretty unique to have this scale of community space on the ground floor, which is, it's partially why it's so hard to do.
Yeah.
It reflects how difficult it is to do.
I'm also kind of wondering, you have people, in the lower income level that would fit that, but they're also mixing with people that have been homeless and people that are coming off of substance abuse. How are all those?
Yeah.
We got any place where all those kind of mix together? I'm trying to picture how.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I think that people will mix, but I think also, that part of the goal, I think, with any affordable housing project is how do we give people space to bring them back into community, and how do we give them space to how do we get them off the street and say, listen, we're not going to do this anymore, right? We're gonna be part of the community, and we're gonna be part of the world, and we're gonna be reintegrated into what's going on here. And I think that I honestly think that a community center on the ground floor does a really good job with that, right? Because you can say, we're having a mahjong party, right? I mean, we walked into the senior center and they were all playing mahjong and playing pinochle, and you can say, come downstairs, play mahjong, and be part of this community, and then it's then it's just a sort of slow process of reintegration.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of value in that.
Yes, in a sense, community house kind of has that. I mean, do they have that variety of folks too? Trying to
I think they
maybe a little
also
bit.
appeal, although they're more transitional though, aren't they?
Yeah, this would be like a
This is much more
Permanent.
This would be
permanent.
permanent.
residence versus we want to get you to the point where you can transfer out. So.
Yeah.
I got you.
I think those are.
Similar in terms of Housewell's project over on 38th,
Correct.
I think.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly what I was gonna say.
oh, sorry.
And and Hazo would be the manager, right? Again, and I
They'd
think
be the
that-
manager of it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they do a really good job.
That's what they do.
Yeah, that's what they do, and they run really good
Yeah.
projects and keep them clean and
Yeah.
Always a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I didn't get quite a good aerial picture. It always takes me a while to look and say, oh, that's what it looks like from the sidewalk, So what's going to happen to the water park? The water park in the Kelso Senior Center,
yeah. What's going to happen to the water park at the Kelso Senior Center? So the water park is staying, is my understanding. As far as the building goes, I think we'd have to get the city of Kelso in here to answer that question. I don't know the exact answer to what they have planned there.
but I thought that was a property that you needed, or I'm confused.
No, the current senior center is a couple blocks to the north. Yeah,
This is south of
This
the new road that they built.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
So
oh, Okay. That
You know where
helps.
you know where Red Leaf is?
Yeah,
Okay, so it's about 2 blocks south of there, right?
The triangular site is across the street from Red Leaf.
sort of like somewhere near Copies Today.
Well, yeah, I mean, that general area, do you know, have you ever noticed where the Sons of Norway Hall is?
Yeah, but
That's right across the street.
Right across the street. Yeah.
So it's an odd shape.
the reason I've been married for 51 years is because I can't navigate any place and my spouse can. Okay, so I'll figure that out. So, but along those lines, you present the capital costs
Mhm.
and what plans do you have for maintenance on that?
Yeah, good question. So, so the way that many of these projects are maintained is you get what are called project-based vouchers. And what a project-based voucher does is it ensures that the tenant that is in the unit that to which the voucher is based pays 30% of their income and rent, and then that voucher pays up to the area fair market rent. And so we're working to get 11 project-based vouchers. So 11 of our 40 units will have this project-based voucher assigned to them. And if that happens, then the rents will actually be able to cover the property management costs and the social services costs.
How much you estimate that to be annually in 2023 dollars?
Good question. And I don't have it off the top of my head. We typically sort of rule of thumb is between 5,000 and 6,000 per year per unit. So that's between 200,000 and 240,000 for the entire project.
Yeah,
per-
my
per year.
guess is you're a factor of 4 too low on that. I mean, typically when you look at a capital investment in real estate or something like that, if you think you can get by with less than 10% of the capital costs, you're probably making a mistake. So
Yeah.
it's not just paying the carrying costs. You're going to have maintenance and you're going to have replacement costs. So you typically
Right.
would amortize the thing based on a lifetime. And so
Yeah.
the reason I'm asking this is I've seen a lot of things where we just ignore that until we've already spent everything, and it's
Right.
nice to know in advance.
Yeah. And so within that 5,000 to 6,000 per unit, there are small, not small, I guess, but there are annual contributions to what they call a replacement reserve. And it's 400 per unit per year, which is the industry standard. But I think that we've seen that it's not
Yeah.
quite enough.
Yeah, if you do it per unit, you're going to get a different answer because that's only to build only the units, you wouldn't spend 15 million and you wouldn't have that many grounds.
Right.
So we're going to have to subsidize everything else is really what I think the implication.
Well, I think that there's generally a sense that, at the end of 15 years, there's sort of a project milestone at the end of 15 years, the tax credit investor, there's a tax credit investor and they exit the deal at the end of 15 years. And there's usually an assumption in the industry that you're going to refinance something in 15 years. Often.
That was my next question.
Yeah,
Okay.
often it's the state puts in a little bit more, or you get a new investor to sort of recapitalize and and repair floors and do a big rehabilitation. That's it's fairly standard.
I like the idea. I like that House was involved. But I'm really anxious about, are we codifying in here a welfare dependency that we should be walking away from in general?
Mhm.
If we look at everything we do, the problem welfare problem continues to grow. Now,
Right.
if the people going in there are the folks that are a lot like what we funded Campus Towers for, is like, they don't have a lot of choice. Life has really gone by, and some of these people may be handicapped and all that.
Right.
And so it's complicated, but we are making winners and losers by doing this.
Right.
And that's one of those things is really hard. I don't like being in that spot. Do you have elevators?
We do. Yeah. Yeah. Elevators in both buildings.
Good.
I noticed on the plans, on the schematics for the apartments, each of the bathrooms had a circle.
Yeah.
That's for what purpose?
That's to show, it's to show that a wheelchair can spin.
Wheelchair.
Yeah. Yeah. it's
Space,
To
yeah.
show wheelchair space.
That's
Exactly.
what I thought it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you said all units are accessible units.
You know, I think that that's something that we need to keep working out with the architect.
Oh, that's
is the number
something
of-
that's still a decision point.
And I think, you know, at a minimum, you know, number one, the accessible standard is like 5% of units, right? It would be 2 units in this would be fully accessible, which is not enough. You know, I think that we've identified that that's not enough. You know, and so at a minimum, we would have things like grab bars in all the bathrooms, right?
Gotcha.
You know, we'd have, you know, at a minimum, we would have at least that amount of infrastructure. You know, there are some other things that accessible units require. You know, they require open cabinets under sinks, and that's, you know, you need that if you're in a wheelchair, but if you're not in a wheelchair, sometimes you wouldn't prefer to have that open. And so there's I think a discussion about whether we would go 100% accessible, and I don't know that we would, but
Gotcha.
So the other source of revenue over the long term is going to be, I'm assuming, lease payments from the city for the senior center and the library space, right?
So ideally, I think ideally the structure is that we would create some sort of condominium, and we would separate, you know, we would legally separate the library and the senior center from the residential portion. And then we would give that to the city, and the city would manage those buildings and would take care of that. You know, I think, right, that we would want neither rent from the city, nor would we want to take care of their expenses. So that's the preferred structure right now.
Who will own the title in 2026?
Who will own title in 2026? A Lower Columbia Cap, or an LLC owned by a Lower Columbia Cap. No, 2026. I'm sorry, Commissioner. In 2026, the project will be owned by a tax credit LLC. It'll be something like Catlin and Maine LLC will be the owner of the project, and Lower Columbia Cap will be a partner in the LLC. They'll own 0.01% of the entity, and then 99.9% will be owned by a bank, JP Morgan or US Bank or
Okay,
PNC.
and what happens if an earthquake hits? And I'm trying to do the case of who's responsible under what conditions, because I wouldn't, I worry about the taxpayer having to bail something out, and lots of things can happen. Like somebody forgets to pay the insurance, and then something happens.
And that doesn't happen. Yeah, no, I think that the point really of having that bank own 99.9% of the outfit is that they make sure that insurance is paid for.
Right. So if something does happen, the city of Kelso doesn't face a $15 million.
No. Yeah, no, it would be insurance. There will be a number of, and within the development budget, there are a number of reserves that are capitalized. You know, there's again, a replacement reserve that'll be capitalized at $1,000 per unit. And then with obviously ongoing contributions to that. And then there are, let's call them operations reserves.
Yeah.
And so if something happens in operations, that'll also be capitalized at at 6 months of operations. And so there are a number of backstops within that. I think, also the benefit to the bank, the bank owns the property, and then the benefit that they get comes 1/10 per year for 10 years. And so they have a really strong incentive for at least the next 10 years, but really the next 15 years to make sure that the building is operating and to make sure that it's, still standing.
So that I don't forget to say it, the mix proposed and all that library and the dwellings and so forth, I don't see any issue for that. In fact, I think I suspect it's a good thing.
Yeah.
But I am still hung up on about $1.5 million is going to be the real annual cost. Whether we pay it all each year or we defer maintenance and we defer other things and we get grants and all that, it's still a cost. And someone has to handle that. And it looks to me like it's going to be primarily the taxpayer. I just for disclosure.
Sure.
I like the fact that every tenant in there's going to have some responsibility to pay. So,
I guess I'm sorry that I didn't bring in the specific operating projections. I do think it's important to note that, that tenants will pay rent, right? They'll pay 30% of their income in rent, no matter what their income is. So if they're, if their income is $3,000 a month, they'll pay $1,000 a month in rent. And if their income is, a $600 a month disability check, then they'll owe $200 a month, so.
Have you factored in any changes in that on the negative side?
We assume that that expenses go up that expenses go up faster than income. Yeah, and that's another standard. But
there's also the other side where it wasn't that long ago when a $300,000 house today was going for a $300,000 house then slumped to about 150 and then went back up again.
Right.
And when it's 150, you're not going to be able to collect the revenue there. Just the dangers of being a landlord.
Right.
When you're the private entity, I figure that's your problem. When it's a public entity, I figure, I got to be more careful for the public.
Yeah, right. I think, the incentive, right? The incentive for HAZWA certainly, and for CAP is to make sure that the building. I guess the other thing about being a private landlord, again, it's your problem, but you can make money by keeping your rents the same and not investing in your property.
Yeah, my crystal ball is horrible. I do know that we're getting about somewhere between 500 and 1,000 new houses or dwellings coming online over the next 3 or 4 months, or some such thing. That's bound to hit the bottom line. So I'm a landlord. I just built a quadplex or a quadruplex, and I wanted $1,800 a month out of each, and I'm only able to get $1,200, because that's what I think we're driving at, actually driving those costs, housing down. But who wants to get caught up in that downflow? I don't want you guys to get caught up in that. Anyhow, those are all my questions.
Okay.
Anything else?
I kind of interrupted you along the way. So.
Very good.
I appreciate you guys coming in and doing that. I think we'd like to be aware of how the project moves along. Is that reasonable to assume?
Well, there's an ask here, I think. Am I correct?
Yes.
I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have a timeline, if I'm trying to find it.
I think funding decisions by December, didn't I?
Funding decisions by December. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I'm looking for. But that doesn't mean December 31st, right?
Yeah, it's usually that second week. It's usually before the holidays.
What happens if you don't get the funding?
We'll go back in, and Sunrise Village took 2 rounds.
I'm sorry.
Sunrise Village, the Haswa project took 2 rounds, and if we don't get funding, we'll go back in. We'll there's a period in January, and we'll talk to the funders and say, hey, how could we have done better? And they'll say, do this next time, and that's what we'll do. And I think that we're happy with the project concept, and CAP is happy with the project concept, and the city is happy with the project concept. So I hope that it wouldn't change too much. But if a funder comes back and says you need to be much bigger or you need to be much smaller, then we would take that into account too. So.
Okay. So we'll put it on a workshop, talk about it.
Yeah, I suppose. How do we feel about it now?
Personally, I kind of like what they're doing. I like that Kelso's invested the property, and I like the fact that Haswa is involved in that, and CAP.
And you're thinking these are out of dock recording fees?
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. Yeah. I think
Like similar to what we've done with the other 2 big projects.
Yeah.
I don't view it much different than Campus Towers or the other. And I'm a little bit conflicted at how these people from different steps in their lives are going to all commingle and get there. But
Yeah, I'm okay on everything. The complaint I might have, and it's the complaint in quotes, is some people have choices and some don't. And when we look at Campus Towers and even Housewell, largely people that don't have choice.
yeah,
And I wouldn't want someone who decides that they're not going to work for a living, decide that they can get housing when someone who can't work for a living gets housing. But that's a question that we can't solve here.
So, and that was one little kind of red flag that I saw on your list of targeted population, the recently incarcerated. The other groups, I have a better understanding about kind of a permanent support, but recently incarcerated folks need to be moving into their own independence unless and that's the other challenge. There are multiple disabilities involved.
Right. And I think that would, for someone with a recently incarcerated background, I think that would be typical, that there would be multiple disabilities involved. I think that.
But that's the clientele that both Haswa and CAP work with.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and I think that.
I think they're the ones that are in better shape to manage how you bring those different groups of population together.
I love the senior center part. I think it's important for people to have a place to gather, and we've been asked for a heck of a lot worse things out of that dock fees, and this does provide some needed housing, so I'd be much more amenable.
I'm okay with it.
To do that with them. We all good with that?
I agree.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Aren't you glad you asked?
I'm glad I asked. Thank you.
Taking the time and coming over and visiting, and glad we could hopefully see this thing through the finish line.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, I should tell you, when Campus Towers had the ribbon cutting ceremony, we got free hats.
Yeah, we got free hats, so
We'll do better. Yeah, I'll tell you, we'll get you 2 free hats.
okay. Who wants to go? I'm looking down, let's see. Gina, there you are.
Good afternoon. I apologize. I didn't come back. I decided to join virtually this afternoon.
What?
My lunch was here.
Yeah,
How many demerits is that?
I know. Did you hear this last presentation? You heard what we did? Okay, good.
I was listening to that. Yeah, I actually will, I'm gonna start somewhere different on my list because of that. So we've talked before about the Consolidated Homeless Grant. The board approved submitting an application to that. We did receive the grant just last week, so that will be coming in front of the board. We had issued a request for qualifications for a portion of that grant from the time and that we issued the request for qualifications for some specific services, like that grant includes the HEN services. It also includes new this year was the eviction prevention, and we've had some conversations with the mediation center about working with them a little bit on some of that. So we issued the request for qualifications and we got a couple of responses back on that. When we got the grant last week, there's a couple other funding streams in there that we didn't anticipate. So I'm sorting through all of that, and we'll be bringing some more information back to the board. I think what I would probably like to do is issue another request for proposals this time, and solicit for some potential projects. One of the funding streams that was added into the grant, they're calling local document recording fee support. And so this is more flexible funding that can be used for anything you would use your local document recording fees for. So it doesn't have the typical grant requirements on it. It's not specified to a particular project or program. And so it's not very much, but in combination with our local document recording fees, we could consider projects like the one you've just heard about. And so issuing a request for proposals would help us kind of get to that point of being able to consider that and look for different projects. But I'm going to stop a second. So just to recap for a second and take a breath, the grant will be coming. I'm going to be putting some more information together for the board. The responses we got to the RFQ, we got responses from 4 different agencies, from one from CAP, one from the Mediation Center, one from Community House, and one from Chi Rivers. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce that, from the Recovery Cafe. So I'm just sorting through those now, and we'll bring back some more information for the board as we look at the grant and how we want to move forward with that.
Jeannie, you mentioned community health. Who is that?
Community House, sorry.
Oh, community house. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I know that one.
So just to be clear, we could use our doc recording fees for what you just heard, the presentation.
Yes, we would have to, figure out some details. It's kind of a combined project. So they have the library and then housing on top. So we would just have to be careful about, the funding could only be used for those units, not for the library, but that's just all in the details. So
That'll be entertaining. Money is fungible, right? I paid for that electrical outlet.
Yeah.
Yep. So, so that was one item I had on my list. So all that to say there's more to come on that. We had also issued a request for qualifications for the criminal justice treatment account funding. While we've not yet received the new state contract for the new fiscal year, we do anticipate that any day now. So we went ahead and issued the RFQ. We got responses from 3 agencies, Columbia Wellness, Cowlitz Family Health Center, and Kai Rivers Recovery Cafe. So I'd like to explore all of those. We've worked with Columbia Wellness and Cowlitz Family Health Center before with this particular funding, and they've been good partners with that funding. And so we have one new partner that would be interesting to explore. So I'd like to kind of look at that. And when we get the state contract and know a little bit more about what that looks like, I'll be bringing that back to the board for some more conversation and decisions on how to move forward there. Let's see. Also coming up, we did get our CDBG Public Services Grant Amendment. This is for Meals on Wheels. So this year, the state is issuing an amendment. We just received that. And so we're be getting that through to get on an agenda in the next few weeks here with the board. And then, as you know, we'll have the public hearing on July 11th for the revisions to the campground code. I think that notice went out this morning, so we'll have that coming up as well. And then just one other item I wanted to mention regarding the Veterans Relief Funding. We've been looking at that revenue and kind of diving into that. We're putting some information together for the board. That revenue comes from a levy, and there's some different options we're looking at there. But we're going to put some information together for the board, and we'll get that to you to take a look at and you know, muster up your questions, and then we'll circle back to you in a couple of weeks for some further discussion. But I just wanted to give you a heads up, so keep your eyes out in your inbox for some more information on that. And let's see, that was all I had on my list, unless the board had any questions or anything for me.
That's
Anything?
all?
Yeah, yeah, I know it, right? Yeah. Okay.
That's it.
Thanks, Gina. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see museum, public events. I do see
Kim's
Kim.
here.
Good afternoon, commissioners. My report is very underwhelming compared to Gina's. But I did want to come and just give you a few updates this afternoon. Move that closer. The Cowlitz County Fair is coming up in about a month. So the entry system is open and we're accepting entries. We're already getting entries, so that's exciting. And then our rodeo entries are handled by the Northwest Professional Rodeo Association. Those open at mid-July, and we don't have anything to say. You have to be a member of that to participate, but trying to get the word out that fair entries are open. We have opened the open horse exhibit area, as I mentioned at my last liaison report. And we do have some open horses coming back, so that's exciting. We have a whole new volunteer group that is helping us put on that open horse show. So that's been just kind of overcoming, I don't want to call them hurdles, but just the details. A lot of our departments within the fair are longstanding, and the open horse department has not been really active in decades. So trying to find anybody with any history has been a little bit difficult, but we've had some great volunteers that have horse show experience step up and help us. So that's all I have on the fair. The event center has been really busy.
On the fair question? Who's the queen of the rodeo?
Her name is Marley Cooper.
Do we know her?
She may live in my house.
Cooper, that sounds familiar.
Oh, yes, my daughter is the 2023 Thunder Mountain Rodeo Queen. So in my time off, I spend taking her to, most recently, the Rose Parade. This last weekend, we went to the Tillamook Rodeo. This coming weekend, we'll be going to a couple different rodeos, but starting in Newport, Oregon. So representing, her job is to be the ambassador for our local rodeo. So it's something that, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. And considering she was pretty much born at, into this, it's only natural that this is what she is. Even if she didn't have a title, she would still be the rodeo queen, or at least a princess. The event center has been really busy. Our first half of the year has been extremely busy. I just gave a report to our public facilities district board last week, and our year-to-date revenues from January to May this year versus last year are up 74%. I looked back at 2019 pre-pandemic, and we're up 57% from 2019. So we're definitely cranking along. I don't have a new report on the status of the hotel. It sounds like the PDA has given them another extent, given the hotel company that is interested in the property another extension. And so their new deadline is July 26th to have a relevant plan for the property.
Brian didn't seem concerned with it. He thought it was fairly normal. So I don't think there's anything bad to read into that.
Right. I think he thought it was positive that they were coming back with questions and doing their due diligence before just jumping in. So yeah, I didn't get any negative feeling about that. Before I move on, is there any questions on the event center?
No.
It's always confusing whether it's the event center or the fairgrounds. Anyhow, I forgot to ask you about the sprinklers. How are they doing?
It's both. It's the 47 acres is the event center. The sprinkler project is moving forward. They're actually actively working today. We had a fire. We did not have a fire. There is a fire that's about a block from the fairgrounds. And just as I was leaving, there was smoke wafting over the grounds.
Had you
And
scared?
I had a small panic attack, and I drove around the grounds before I left, and there's nothing on our property that's on fire, but unfortunately one of our neighbors has a structure on fire. So, but the company that's replacing the sprinkler heads is there actively working, and they were also watching the activities along with our other neighbors. But
So they'll be all through in a week.
they were hoping to be done by the 4th of July. I'm not sure if they've ran into any type of supply chain issues. When I talked to them today, it was really a drive-by of everything going okay. They gave me the thumbs up. Everything's great. So their deadline is by the end of July, or our deadline is by the end of July, but they'd hope to have everything done right around the first part of July, because we do start setting up for the fair. So.
And then one other thing, the car show was tremendous. It was, did either of you go to the car show?
I think I was flying back from Canada.
Yeah, the reason I mention is because it's by far the largest number of interesting automobiles I've seen together.
That was the Longview Centennial Car Show, or was that a different?
No, that was the Heaven car show.
Oh.
Helping Every Veteran in Need is an organization that rented the grounds from us. I believe the car show has been held elsewhere, and this was their 3rd annual event that they had at the fairgrounds because they outgrew the last location.
The indoors area was full of cars. The area between the event center and the horse arena was cars. Some cars out on the infield, but then my next question is, did I see some of the carny stuff out on the infield?
You did. Fantastic is setting up for the 4th of July, the Go Forth Festival. And we have a relationship with them because they've been our carnival provider in the past. So they paid to store some items at our grounds for a week.
They use the fairgrounds or
Just
go-
for storage.
Just for storage, yeah.
Yep,
No, I
and they'll
think
be-
that's fine.
Yep, they'll be moving out tomorrow to move over to, I believe it's Arilong is where they set up the carnival for the Go Forth.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's kind of a cooperation I like.
Yep. Yeah, the manager of that company and I still stay in touch, even though they don't provide our carnival anymore, but he's a great resource in that industry. So we try to keep those relationships good. And then my last update is just the Silver Lake Gift Shop. The upper State Route 504 Spirit Lake Highway is still closed between mileposts 45 and 51. They've opened up the Coldwater, the Forest Service has opened up the Coldwater Lake day use and the Hummocks Trail. So that's been positive. People are excited to get back up there. The Mount St. Helens Visitor Center and our gift shop continue to stay busier than usual for this time of year. And a lot of people, visitors stopping in with questions, and which is typical, but I feel like with the road closed, they're stopping in more. So I think in the past, they've probably just continued on up to Johnston Ridge, knowing that they'll find what they need to, and then they kind of backtrack. And the trend has been that they stop, ask questions, how far can they drive? And so in turn, we're staying very busy.
It's probably good to give a kudo to the Port of Kalama on this one, I would think.
Absolutely. Yep. Those tour buses are still coming in. So I was just at McMenamins for some, they're doing some music down at McMenamins at the amphitheater there on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So last Wednesday, some friends and I went down and had dinner, and there was a cruise ship sitting there, and I just was like, yeah, bring it on in. It was great. It'll be great when those shops open up too.
Yeah, they sure, yeah. I can't say enough about them.
That's all I had. Really underwhelming, like I said, but a lot of great news.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty good.
I like to bring you guys good news.
Thank you, Kim.
Mhm.
Okay, young lady that brought us the flower.
That's a bouquet for the chairman, right?
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Jennifer with the Cowlitz County Noxious Weed Control Program. A couple of updates before I discuss our new specimen here. So we've been working, nice transition from Mount St. Helens. Our crew started working on the mountain last week. We have 2 crew members that have been on for a few weeks training and getting everything in order. And I have 2 more starting tomorrow. So we'll have a crew of 4 doing noxious weed treatments up on the monument. And we've been working with the Forest Service. We have another grant coming through with Title II funds. So you should expect to see that in the next few weeks. I can't remember how much it was for, but that'll be coming through the regular agenda process. So
So are you able to get up to, I know when that bridge gave way, you were concerned you could get up, not be able to get up to some of the area. Are you able to get to all the areas?
So we're reprioritizing and focusing on the
okay.
areas that are accessible now. We'll see how far we make it before we're kind of always on a treatment window. So at a certain point, it doesn't make sense to treat the weeds anymore because they're seeding. So we'll see how far we make it. If we need to, we can take the Hummocks Trail up towards Johnston Ridge, and it will just be a longer hiking day for that crew. So
Okay.
So should we expect to see a request for mules?
I wish. I don't think the Forest Service will
I
allow
can
that
hook you up with
within the
the,
monument.
Yeah. Well, you just had mentioned that if you don't get to treat it this year, then it
Yeah.
kind of sets you back. I forget how many years you said.
It would definitely set us back. So we're gonna, last year, in the last couple of years, we've had a 3-person crew. So I'm excited to have 4 people, which will hopefully allow our treatments to go further in the time that they're out there. So exciting stuff. We will be participating in all 3 of the fairs that go on throughout the county, Castle Rock, Kalama, and the Cowlitz Fair. So we're looking forward to outreaching to many of our community members there. And we've scheduled our tansy collection day. Tansy has already started to flower in some of the more resource stressed areas. So we're looking at July 22nd as our tansy collection day. Last year we collected just about 2 tons of tansy. So we're hoping to meet or exceed that this year. So we've also been working on the false brome grant. We have what we initially thought was going to be mostly along the right-of-way project has expanded to include somewhere between 40 and 50 landowners who have had very extensive infestations of false brome. Again, that's the Class A grass that we have a grant to treat. But we did this week find a new infestation in a completely new area. So that's a little worrisome. But we'll be working with anybody and everybody that we can to try to reduce that spread. So we'll see how that goes. Lastly, I brought a sample today. I'm not sure if everybody online can see this. So this plant is called Scotch thistle. The reason I brought it today is it is the first time that we have documented this in our county, for the records that I have access to at the very least. So we've not had this in our county before. Typically it grows on the east side of the state. It's a Class B noxious weed. If you can believe it, this plant will get anywhere from 6 to 8 feet tall. The plant that we collected this from was maybe 5 to 6 feet tall. see a
Don't
question.
forget to define for the public what Class A, B, and C are.
Thank you. Thank you for the reminder. So Class A weeds are our highest priority. They're required for eradication. Class B weeds are required for control in some areas of the state and able to be chosen for control at the local level in other areas. Usually that's based on the presence of the species. So something like Scotch broom is very prevalent on the west side of the state, not very prevalent on the east side of the state. So all of the areas where it's not present are required to continue to control it, whereas our goal on the west side is to contain it. So the goal of B is to contain the weeds where they already exist and reduce their populations. And then Class C weeds are more widespread throughout the state and are selectively controlled based on local priorities. So this one is a Class B. It's similar to some of our other thistles, very round stem or round flower heads like bull thistle. This is one of the flower heads here. And one of the differences between this and its close look-alike bull thistle is that this has wings all along the stem. This sample shows that in very small detail, but we have some larger parts of the stem back at the office. Those were harder to carry in a vase. So we found this in the industrial area of Longview. There was maybe a total of 8 to 10 plants, and we were able to contact the landowner who allowed us to remove those plants immediately. So I don't have a fear that this is going to spread, but I am concerned about where it could pop up again in the future. We did a really thorough survey of the area. Most of the area within a good distance was owned by either the same landowner or other commercial properties. So I'm not concerned that it's elsewhere in the area, just that it got here somehow.
So do we really care whether it's Scotch thistle or some other kind of thistle?
We do care that it is Scotch thistle over one of the other kinds because we have never documented this here. So when we have a new species, we do what's called early detection and rapid response to try to prevent it from establishing at all.
But I'm confused there. If it is, to me, unfortunately, I have to apologize to my granddad, a thistle is a thistle. So if you were to find not a Scotch thistle there, but a whiskey thistle, would that be an equivalent problem in your mind?
No, it would be a different problem based on the current species prevalence. So bull thistle is very similar. Bull thistle is a Class C and it's already everywhere.
But let's
so-
say it went totally out of control.
Yeah.
We had no noxious weed board. 5 years from now, would it make a difference which one had taken over?
I don't know. I'm not sure if it would,
Okay.
if we would be able to tell. Either way, they are both very invasive. So if your land management goals is to have grazing or accessible property, you wouldn't want either thistle.
Yeah.
So maybe for some land management goals, it would not matter what species of thistle it is.
Okay,
If that
thank you.
helps.
Yeah.
I understand your question now. So a very small population, but we're glad to stay on top of this one before it spreads. Any questions for the Noxious Weeds program?
Is that particular print of any economic use?
Not that I'm aware of. More detrimental than anything.
So I plan.
Only for decorating Scottish tourist souvenirs.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking, it looks almost like a small artichoke from here.
We dried the specimens. We've been drying a few of our specimens so that I can take them to educational classes and things like that. So this is one we chose to dry. So this one is dried. Hopefully it won't try to seed. We have had a couple of our thistle seed in the drying mix. So but yeah, I don't think that this one has any medicinal uses or anything like that.
Yeah, if that chart starts showing up at the different fairs, they're gonna come looking for you.
I know. I know. Keep it contained. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you. I don't see WSU. So,
Let me give just a short update for the museum.
Okay.
Of course, the HVAC system is being overhauled, so they've cut back on their activities. Although they did open up a new permanent exhibit on 1923. And the hidden theme is 1923, it's more than just Longview. There were a lot of other things that happened in Cowlitz County in 1923, so they're highlighting that. There was another town founded in Cowlitz County in 1923. We forget about it, Riderwood. And so they're putting that in.
Yeah, but-
Another little,
But yeah, but that's in his district, not ours. So
Riderwood's
and
actually
I
in
will
his
be
district.
out at that celebration.
You may have heard or read that Joseph is working with City of Longview on the rehabilitation of the Monticello Convention Memorial
Yeah.
near the library. There was a discussion, a question that was raised about why are they getting rid of the big mature rhododendrons? Because that's one of a native species. Well, they've encountered people hiding there if the shrubs are too big. And so that's part of their residential control strategy on that.
we can't do what we do with the pigeons and put some spiky stuff.
Some of those spiky things.
Yeah, apparently not. I don't know. The other interesting thing is that the historic exhibit had engraved, has engraved the names of the signers of that convention document. It was a memorial sent to Congress requesting a new territory be created north of the Columbia River called Columbia Territory. And I had done some research years ago and published some findings that there are about 4 or 5 of those names that don't appear anywhere else in any other documents. No land claim forms, no property records, nothing. And it got me to thinking that it could very well be a misreading of signatures on the deck. So it's something like Winslow instead of Windsor, Ferrick instead of Finch, those kinds of things. And I raised those. And unfortunately, the original documents have disappeared. Nobody knows whatever happened to them. And so you can't go back to the original document to actually verify. So there may be some kind of an adjustment made on this to recognize, well, there may be some other. folks
Should we
out
blame our auditor for not having those
there.
documents?
That
available?
document, actually, this predates Cowlitz County, so.
You got away with this one, Carolyn.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Any miscellaneous? Any comments on anything you heard today? Okay. It's been a day. We will adjourn it. Thank you.